Hello, hello. Yes. Good morning and welcome to our special event in Distrito Digital. Bienvenidos a nuestro evento especial aquí en Distrito Digital. Hyvää huomenta ja tervetuloa suomalaiset. Vamos a tener primero, vamos a dar palabra a Antonio Rores de Distrito. Posteriormente voy a dar una mini ponencia de transformación de negocios y luego tenemos una mesa sumamente interesante donde esperemos que cada uno de ustedes o vosotros vais a participar. Tenemos micrófonos, etc. Entonces, y después, quizás lo más importante, tenemos bastante tiempo para networking y colaboración y conocer uno a otro. Entonces, now we will give the floor and word to Antonio Rores de Distrito Digital. Antonio, bienvenidos.
Gracias, Lasse. Buenos días, se me escucha, ¿verdad? Buenos días, bienvenidos al Distrito Digital.
Hyvää huomenta ja tervetuloa Distrito Digitaliin.
Estamos muy orgullosos de poder propiciar, ser anfitriones de este encuentro.
Olemme ylpeitä, että saimme paljon mielenkiintoisia ihmisiä tänne.
Como han podido ver, este entorno se pensó para hacer cine. Y hace 10 años, justo ahora, la Comisión de la Competencia de la Unión Europea prescribió o dictaminó el cierre de la actividad.
10 vuotta sitten tämä alue oli ideana tehdä elokuvia täällä, mutta 10 vuotta sitten se pysäytettiin.
Por prácticas contra la competencia, porque se hizo una gestión no adecuada del flujo comercial de las productoras que venían y que se estaba trabajando con precios muy inferiores a los del mercado, y entonces algunos estudios de Europa se quejaron e instaron la incoación de un expediente en la Unión Europea para restablecer el equilibrio del mercado.
Eli alun perin tämä alue tehtiin elokuvastudiota varten ja sitten Euroopan komissio antoi sakon, pysäytti toiminnan, koska hinnat olivat paljon alhaisemmat. Monet muut televisio- ja elokuvastudiot valittivat siitä Euroopassa.
Hoy estamos intentando que esos estudios que ven ahí puedan tener algún tipo de utilidad pública y que no suponga una distorsión de las condiciones del mercado, del equilibrio del mercado.
Tänä päivänä yritetään, että nuo elokuvastudiot, että niistä saataisiin suuri hyöty ja että kaikki voitaisiin tehdä Euroopan unionin sääntöjen mukaan.
Eso nos lleva a actividades no económicas, actividades propias de la administración pública.
Ja Euroopan unioni laittoi semmoisen säännön, että ei saa olla tämmöistä business-aktiviteettia, vaan niissä elokuvastudioissa pitää olla jotain aktiviteettia, joka kuuluu tähän paikallishallinnolle.
Por ejemplo, han servido para hacer la vacunación masiva contra la COVID.
Esimerkiksi isot rokotealueet tai isot rokotestudiot, voisi sanoa näin, niin isot rokotehallit, niin niitä käytettiin rokotteiden antamiseen.
Y en estos momentos está sirviendo como centro logístico para el reparto de alimentos y medicinas a Ucrania, y también como un nodo de distribución de los refugiados ucranianos que van a empezar a venir.
Ja nyt parhaillaan niitä elokuvastudioita käytetään siihen, että saataisiin ruokatarvikkeita ja muita tarvikkeita vietyä Ukrainaan ja samoin ukrainalaisia pakolaisia tuotua tänne ja autettua siinä prosessissa.
De manera que una infraestructura que estaba pensada para rodar cosas como la guerra de Ucrania acaba finalmente siendo un centro de recepción de los problemas que trae la guerra de Ucrania.
Eli ideana oli tehdä elokuvia, esimerkiksi sotaelokuvia, mutta nyt tätä paikkaa käytetään justiinsa tämmöiseen sotatilanteen apuun ja hyvän tekeväisyyteen.
En cualquier caso, el presidente del gobierno valenciano cuando en el 2015 inició una política de cambio y evolución del modelo económico de la Comunidad Valenciana.
Vuonna 2015 Valencian alueen presidentti lausui, että nyt on aika tehdä uutta tällä alueella ja alkaa panostamaan teknologiaan.
Un modelo económico que había estado basado en el turismo y en la construcción.
Ja tämä edellinen tapa tehdä bisnestä oli lähinnä perustunut turismiin ja rakentamiseen.
La idea fue crear el germen de un nuevo sector de la economía que aquí no existía con la potencia que todos hubiésemos querido, como es la economía digital.
Ja ideana oli laittaa siemenet ja alkaa promotoimaan digitaalista ekonomiaa ja kaikkea siihen liittyvää tällä alueella.
Y hemos utilizado 3 edificios aquí y otro que hicimos en el puerto, más otro que estamos construyendo en el puerto, o sea, edificios tanto aquí como en el puerto de Alicante, para hacer una especie de hub de empresas de economía digital.
Ja tällä alueella on 3 rakennusta, mitkä perustuu siihen, että sinne tulee teknologiafirmoja, ja keskustassa on vielä 1 ja tekeillä on toinen, mitkä myös luo tämmöisen teknologiahubin.
Hoy tenemos alojadas aquí en el puerto 70 empresas, unas startups, otras empresas grandes.
Tänään täällä on 70 eri firmaa, toiset on startup-firmoja, toiset on isoja firmoja.
Y estamos desarrollando pues, un paquete de servicios para el conjunto de la economía digital de la Comunidad Valenciana.
Ja valmistelemme pakettia, mikä auttaisi kaikenlaisia firmoja tällä alueella.
Y en ese proyecto nos ayudó muchísimo Finlandia.
Ja siinä projektissa Suomi oli todella hyvänä apuna.
De hecho, tuvimos un viaje hace 4 años, el presidente de la Generalitat, el conseller de Educación, yo mismo que les acompañé a Finlandia, donde conocimos gente como el amigo Heikki de Trailmaker, que nos ayudaron muchísimo a crear el germen de ese ecosistema.
Ja 4 vuotta sitten menimme Suomeen, ja Suomi on auttanut tässä projektissa todella paljon, ja 4 vuotta sitten alueen presidentti ja Antonio matkustivat Suomeen ja oppivat tuntemaan esimerkiksi Heikin, joka auttoi paljon tässä prosessissa.
Por lo tanto, este proyecto es una coproducción finlandesa-española o valenciana, ¿no? Alicantina.
Ja näin tämä projekti on puoliksi niin kuin, tämmöinen yhteistyöprojekti Suomen ja Espanjan välillä.
Hoy estamos encantados de tener aquí a una representación de grandes corporaciones finlandesas.
Olemme kiitollisia siitä, että täällä on paljon suomalaisia firmoja paikalla.
En el fondo esto era una reunión, un evento que se iba a hacer con ocasión de la visita del ministro Villes-Quinari, que finalmente, y por razones que me parece que no hay que explicar mucho por lo que está ocurriendo en el mundo, no ha podido ser.
Alun perin ministeri Villes-Kinnarin piti olla täällä, mutta ymmärrämme, että tietyistä geopoliittisista syistä hän ei ole päässyt paikalle.
Pero estamos encantados de que hoy tengamos esta representación aquí, estamos muy honrados y hemos querido convocar a algunas grandes corporaciones y empresas potentes, tanto valencianas como españolas, para que podamos tener una jornada de convivencia y de posibilidad de encontrar cauces de colaboración.
Olemme kiitollisia, että täällä on sekä espanjalaisia firmoja että suomalaisia firmoja, ja ideana on tehdä paljon yhteistyötä ja jutella ja networkata.
Algunas de estas empresas que vienen de Madrid y otras de Murcia llegarán tienen un poco de retraso y continuarán llegando, pero estamos encantados de que podamos empezar esta jornada y que espero que sea muy fructífera.
Tietyt firmat tulevat vielä mukaan tässä Madridista ja Murciasta, mutta olemme todella kiitollisia, että voimme aloittaa nyt ja toivomme, että tapahtuma tulee olemaan tosi hyödyllinen.
Por lo demás, tanto a las empresas españolas como finlandesas, agradecerles de nuevo su visita.
Kiitoksia sekä espanjalaisille firmoille että suomalaisille firmoille, että olette tulleet paikan päälle.
Les recibimos con lo mejor que tenemos, que es nuestro mar y nuestro sol, que es el mejor que hay en el mundo y que lo tenemos a nuestro nombre escriturado en el registro de la propiedad?
Muy difícil. Otamme teidät vastaan meidän auringolla ja merellä, ja se on meidän tämmöinen tavaramerkki.
Y con todo nuestro afecto y gratitud por habernos ayudado a iniciar este proyecto.
Ja kiitoksia vielä kerran Suomelle ja siitä avusta, mitä olemme saaneet, että olemme päässeet vauhtiin tässä projektissa.
Muchas gracias. Que sea fructífera la jornada.
Kiitos. Okay, so ahora vamos a hacer en inglés. Ahora nyt vaihdamme kielen englanniksi. Vamos a ir directamente, vamos a poner la presentación y voy a mirar cuánto tiempo tengo. Perfecto. So we will start right when I see the presentation. Presentation, 1, 2, 3. Okay, there we go. And can you put? Okay, excellent. So welcome again. I will quickly try to talk about business transformation. And the idea is that I will focus on 5 different core topics, and after that we will have a roundtable discussion with other experts, and we expect all of you to participate. So, rápidamente en español vamos a hablar 20 minutos de transformación de negocios, luego tenemos una mesa sumamente interesante donde esperemos que todos vais a participar también, tenemos micrófonos y esperemos que es una mesa sumamente interactiva. So, business transformation, and before that I wanted to also say thank you to Trailmaker from Finland to organizing this special day, and also Distrito Digital. So, when we start thinking about future, we always have to think about how we will adapt to different changes. And as you know, world has been changing a lot. First we had a COVID crisis, then we were just thinking that COVID was done, when we now have a Ukraine war and crisis over there. So this will make decision makers and business leaders, they need to move faster, and we have to do faster strategy implementation and so on. So today we talk about 5 different things. I also have a 6th topic that I want to give as a bonus. We first talk about business transformation, some ideas and reflections about that. Then we talk about AI. Then we talk about energy transformation quickly. In the roundtable we will continue about energy transformation. Then we will debate about China, US and EU relationships and how EU could be more powerful. And then we also talk about cybersecurity, which has changed a lot. And I would say that every company, all of your companies are in threat and should be increasing your cybersecurity budgets. So, like I mentioned, in a moment we have this special roundtable discussion, but and we have 6 or 5 experts here, plus all of you will also participate in this discussion. So, David Bowie used to say that future belongs to those who can hear it coming. How many of you knew that COVID could happen? Raise your hand. Almost nobody, right? Or how many of you knew that the situation we have in Ukraine could happen? So right now we have to understand that the world is changing really fast, and I think we need to be proactively thinking how we can adapt to these changes and how we can do better collaboration. For example, Spain and Finland, how Spain and Finland could be collaborating more when we have these huge things happening. But always think about David Bowie and the fact that we have to start listening more to signals, what will happen in the future, how my company will adapt. This will become more and more important than it used to be. So, some things about business transformation. The idea is that technology is accelerating this transformation, and the idea is that our companies need to think how we can do the same things but faster. And also technology will allow, for example, AI will allow us to do new things in completely new way. There will be new products and services created thanks to AI, and this is also a big opportunity for everybody. So, few things I want to highlight here. For example, what are some risks about innovation, business innovation? When we start a new project, what are some risks? So, obviously, most of you know all of these. I would say the last one, uncertainty and unknowns, that has increased tremendously lately, right? And also, we don't know what will happen in 6 months, 1 year. We cannot do like 3-year planning or 5-year planning as we used to. And obviously, regulatory hurdles. This means that in EU, application, for example, of AI has been much difficult or more difficult than in US and in China. And it is something that EU has to catch up, and we have to make better legislation, and we have to quickly change the the laws. And then obviously geopolitical pressure is growing and growing, and competitive landscape is also growing. Now all of a sudden big companies can face competition from small companies who use some kind of disruptive technology and so on. Now, moving on, Arc Investment or Invest company from US highlights that in the next 8 years there will be 5 different technologies that will significantly change the business landscape. And the question is, how well is your company applying these technologies? So, for example, AI, battery technology, blockchain, robotics, and gene sequencing, you can see the increase. The increase you see in the middle is the year-by-year growth. But how many of you knew that, for example, battery technology alone is much bigger industry than robotics? Many times newspapers and business papers talk about robotics, but look at how big the battery technology is, and maybe this is something that, I don't know, Finland or Spain or together could be leveraging and using more. To end this section, I wanted to share this strategic time horizon from Future Today company. And also, at the same time, I have to highlight that this was done before Ukraine situation and before COVID. So what you need to do is to think about your tactical plans, your strategic plan, your vision, your system level disruption, what will happen. But below you see the years, and now world has changed. So those years I recommend to divide by 2. So it says from 1 to 2 year plan was tactical, that has to be now 6 months or even less. Strategic planning we cannot do for 2 years or 5 years, it has to be 1 year or 2 year because everything is changing so fast. And also this system level disruption is quite interesting because thanks to AI and other technologies, almost everything can be possible in 8 to 10 years. But we need more people who think what are those things that we really need and how they will help our businesses and our society. So this is quite useful business strategy framework. Let's now jump to AI. AI, probably all of you know, it's important. Finland was one of actually the first European country to introduce the AI strategy. And thanks to that, AI is being used in many, many sectors in Finland. Spain has been taking time in this. However, the government of Spain introduced their AI strategy, I think 6 months ago. And I also have to highlight that Spain, for example, has now the head of big data or head of data of Spain, which is really interesting. We don't have that kind of person in Finnish government and Finnish society. So Spain is applying a lot. So I have few reflections on how we can use this. Cathy Wood from Arco Invest says that in few years, deep learning can automate the creation of new software, which is quite remarkable. If you think about your software of your company, it will be changing thanks to deep learning in few years. And she says that it will create industry disruption in every sector. So no sector will be without disruption. And do I have a battery? We had the battery storage is one thing. Okay. Not working. Necesitamos otro esto, por fin. Okay, there we go. So quickly, data. So remember the new focus is data, creating business value from data, and that's the key. It used to be we need to get more and more physical assets, but now it's all about data and how our company can generate business value from data. The amount of data, if you check there, 2022, which we are now, you can check how this exponential curve is growing, and that's all created data, collected and consumed data. And this means that every company will have more and more data, both internally but also externally. This is something, for example, City of Helsinki has, I think, 500 different data sources on their website. Every company can use them. Same with City of Madrid here. And also European Union is promoting the data usage between companies and between countries, and we will soon have a really interesting data economy. The question for your company is how you will leverage this and how you can keep up the space with this. I wanted to include this really interesting quote from a company that does steel. So in Spanish, that's acero, una empresa de acero. In Finland, actually, it's a Swedish company, but their digital director says that every time we make a ton of steel, we also make a gigabyte of data. So we are data machines. And your company also has to think that you are a data machine. Whatever you do, you are data machine, because from that data, you can use it to AI, you can use it to create new products and services. Now, how do we do this data analysis? Really easy. We don't talk about difficult AI algorithms. 3 steps. First, you identify what is data. From that data, how do we can get insights? From those insights, how we can convert them to action items. And this is interesting because this is something that big corporations can do right now, but it's also something that small companies here in Spain, I have helped, for example, many small hotels to do the same. Analyze who are my customers, how I can identify those customers, how I can serve them better, and so on. So always remember these 3 steps and also how your company can use them. My next recommendation is synthetic data. If your company is not analyzing what is synthetic data, that would be one action item, and think that synthetic data and its uses is growing a lot. According to Gartner, in few years, there will be more synthetic data than real data, and this will give a huge opportunities for companies to create new models without doing the Facebook AI, which is that we take users, private data and use it to our models. Synthetic data allows us to do something totally new, and we don't break any privacy laws or anything like this. Moving on, this AI part, it's interesting because Finland started this AI revolution quite early. According to Accenture, Finland will be one of the countries that will most benefit from increased labor force or productivity in labor force. But Spain is also over there, and I would say that if Spain will continue with the same, investments in AI, it's in a really good path. Now, moving on, quick action list for everybody. 5 things: how your business can generate more data from, or generate business value from data, how you can identify new external and internal data sources, how your company can create new products and services from AI in few years. It doesn't happen in the same month. It will take few years, but it will be significant. How your company can collaborate with Gaia X, which we'll talk in a second, and how you can use synthetic data. Now, few words about energy transformation, because it's also important. We will continue talking about it in our roundtable discussion. But as you know, everything has changed thanks to COVID, but also thanks to this situation in Ukraine. 2 days ago, or a few days ago, BlackRock, which is the biggest asset management company in the world, said that due to this war, it will accelerate this green energy transition. And this is also something that maybe the countries, Spain and Finland, could collaborate, and also something that Spain is also, for example, really good in wind energy, whereas Finland has been lagging behind. So interestingly, just a few months ago, it was said that now wind energy is the leading energy source in Spain, which is quite good. At the same time, we have problems with Russia saying that they will cut our natural gas of Europe. So in a way, Spain has been moving well there. This chart only shows about new wind energy installations in different European countries. Netherlands is the first, Spain is number 4, and Finland is behind. Maybe we can also talk about what can Finland learn from Spain when it comes to wind energy. All of this we talk in a moment more in our roundtable discussion. I want to give few reflections about this dynamic of EU, US, and China, and we talk about it in the context of artificial intelligence, which is one of the most interesting things. So you might already know that when it comes to AI, we have 3 different ways of doing AI. In Europe, it's called Citizen-Centric AI, where we use AI to generate value for the citizens, and I think that's the number 1 way. In the US, it's consumer-centric AI, and this is what Google and Facebook has been doing for years. At the end, it's really bad. The only focus is increase the shareholder value. And in China, which interestingly, the Chinese leader is the number 1 leader who understands AI best. So he has been promoting government-centric AI. In other words, you can use AI as soon as all the data comes to government's usage, and this is something we definitely do not want here. China has, for example, 500 million cameras in all the streets. They use different AI machines to control their citizens, and obviously this is something that we don't want. Right now, US and China are leading, and we here in in Europe need to collaborate more and have to do more to really have this citizen-centric AI where both government, society, and companies have more value from AI. Few charts here. This was AI venture capital and private funding when it comes to artificial intelligence. You can see the difference in millions of dollars when we compare US and China and EU. So obviously EU is not investing enough. We expect, for example, that many of these EU next generation programs will help in this matter because that's greatly needed. And something that I see might be European opportunity is this use of supercomputers, which means quantum computing. There's big quantum computing somewhere in Finland, I don't remember where, and also in Barcelona. But here, if you compare the difference between, for example, US and EU, there's not such a big difference, and I find it quite positive. Quantum computers are normally used when there's amazing amount of data, something, for example, that you can use in banking sectors or such. Other smaller sectors you can use AI, but quantum computing is needed when there's like huge amount of data. And I would say here, EU has been doing a good job, and maybe it's an interesting opportunity to continue. Now, I also was reading the other day that, for example, head of digitalization in EU says that now, as you might know, there's not enough chips, microchips in the world, and Brussels wants EU to be one of the main providers. So after COVID, after Ukraine situation, there's more thinking that we have to move faster and we have to produce things like microchips and not depend more on China. One of the last things about this relationship, this here is done by Nuria Oliver, who is one of the leaders in AI in Europe, also collaborator of Distrito. And on the left-hand side, you will see all the bad things that have been done with AI and are being done, I would say, in China, in US. And on the right-hand side, you see the solution for that. So black box model means that if you go to China right now and ask a loan for a car, you get the answer in 1 second. However, you have no idea what that answer was based on. So there's like no opportunity to apply it again or do some change, meaning nobody knows how those algorithms work. Also, the Facebook algorithm is secret. Nobody knows how it works. For example, Helsinki City has developed different AI solutions, and there's always algorithmic transparency, which is great. All the citizens need to know how algorithms work. And I would say the second point there, privacy-preserving algorithms, this is what we need. And this is also something that synthetic data has a lot to do, where we don't need to do these privacy violations that Facebook and Google are doing all the time. Now, moving on and mentioning a few things. We don't have to go more deep into this, but European Union has an interesting new digital act where they try to push this agenda of business-to-business data collaboration and also government-to-government data collaboration. And they also focus and promote something called smart contracts and the use of blockchain, which is interesting because then we would have systems that would be more decentralized and less centralized, which normally makes things go slower. I mentioned Gaia X earlier. We don't have to go deep into that, but I just recommend that everybody writes it down or remembers what it is. Basically, the idea here, it's an initiative from France and Germany, and now it's a European-wide project. In Finland, it's done by Sitra. In Spanish, it's done by the government. And the idea is to create data hub for Europe, where companies could sell data and do more projects with data in a really interesting way, not the way that is done in US and so on. So it's basically like competing with the US way of using data. And I would have to say that it's taking time, and it takes time when there's so many countries, but it will be really, really beneficial and really interesting in the future. Now, here we don't have to talk about more, but it's basically, they also collaborate with the platform called Ocean Protocol, which is an interesting data market. So the idea is that in Europe there will be a data market that helps all this. But now, a few things about cybersecurity, and then bonus topic, and then we go to our roundtable. Cybersecurity, the probability that your company will be on threat with cybersecurity has increased tremendously in the next few weeks. And US Secretary just said a few days ago that all European countries are likely being attacked. The good thing here is that obviously we don't talk about same attacks as, if somebody was dropping bombs here, but it means that your budget for cybersecurity needs to be increased. So here I give action list of 5 different questions. Number 1, analyze what are your most interesting business assets, okay, and data, and how you are protecting them. And also the number 3 is quite interesting, that how do we know if somebody has robbed our data? Sometimes, hackers rob data and then 6 months later they say, hey, we have all your data and so on. And also what kind of layers of protection we have. And the number 5, is our cyber security investment enough? And I would say that probably it's not enough, and I recommend to increase it. A few things about Web3, which is interesting for those companies who work with B2C, because now we had Web 2.0 where companies were able to do like Facebook pages, but Web3 is all about smart contracts and blockchain and how consumers can be part of this new economy. So I don't have enough time now, but I just say a few things here. For example, in the future we will have systems that work autonomously using blockchain and AI technology. For example, in travel sector, there's already products for this, and this is something that companies need to catch up and start thinking about it. So my action list here for you to take home is, if your company is working in B2C, you have to learn more about what are NFTs and how you can use them, what is MetaMask, what are DAOs, and what is something called metaverse, which according to estimates will be bigger than this real world that we are. So business in metaverse is expected to be bigger, which is quite significant. So last thing, as we all need to support Ukraine, I found this quite interesting, that before the war, there was a lot of Web3 developers, 200,000 Web3 developers who now are actually defending their country and not working. But it's interesting to know that Ukraine has been highly, or really good in technology. For example, the creator of WhatsApp that all of you are using is from Ukraine, and so on. So it's quite interesting how I'm quite sure that technology has helped Ukraine a lot in this conflict as well. So my recommendation is to now participate in this roundtable we have, but also think how we as 2 countries, Spain and Finland, could continue this collaboration and how we could go to the next level in these different topics, because right now collaboration is badly needed in Europe. So with those words, I want to welcome our 5 participants here, and we will start our roundtable discussion. So please, Taavi, Juhani, Jose Antonio, Roberto, and Guillermo. Please, can you come here and we'll start our roundtable. So Juhani there.